Tania's already said, I'm Marie. I'm a product manager by trade and the global head of product for Moodle HQ. You can see that, and you could probably hear it as well. I am not originally from Perth. I was born in Quebec in Canada. That's me with the flower. But I've been living here for at least 25 years. And so that means I've been living here in Australia longer than I ever did spend time in Canada. And I think I sound like an Australian person until somebody reminds me that I have an accent. One of the reasons I've stayed here so long is I met a pretty awesome man. His name is Greg, and that's my husband in the middle. And together we raise our 2 children. They have fur on their faces, but they are still absolutely our children. And I'm looking, any fellow fur parents in the room? Okay, you are my people. Welcome. It's funny how much you can love those little buggers. As Tania said, in my role as the global head of product, I have the distinct honor and privilege of leading the 80 or so people around the globe who together design and build the Moodle product proposition. In my team, we have people like product managers, UX designers, UX researchers, software developers, testing engineers, DevOps engineers. So I like to think about us as a full stack product team. Whatever we need to do to get the product out there and into the hands of our users, it gets done in our team. Together, we build a bunch of different things. We build Moodle LMS, Moodle Workplace, the Moodle mobile applications. We provide a Moodle cloud offering, and we also provide support for the Moodle community. And because this talk is all about community, I'll explain what that actually means a little bit more later on. But so you understand what Moodle is a learning management solution. With Moodle LMS, you can go to moodle.org right now and click on a button and download Moodle. And for free, as long as you know how to follow instructions and have a computer you can put the thing on, for free you can get an enterprise-grade learning management solution that would allow you to teach classes online to a wide range of students. So Moodle LMS is, by definition, an open source solution. And it's open source in the 2 different senses of the free that sits behind open source. Free as in it doesn't cost anything, but also free as in freedom, as in once you have it, you can do whatever you want with it. Moodle Workplace is our product that's designed for the corporate or government sector or for organizations with much more complex needs. And Moodle Workplace is only available via a network of certified partners. And those partners get the right to distribute Moodle Workplace, and in exchange, they pay us a little bit of a royalty. And it's with those royalties that we actually can take and reinvest and continue the development of Moodle LMS. And then we also offer Moodle directly from Moodle HQ through our Moodle Cloud proposition. And I'm looking, Mathieu is over there, and he's one of the kind of literally inventors of the Moodle Cloud proposition, so I'm quite happy he gets to be in the room for this one. But Moodle Cloud is really our software as a service solution, and it is designed for smaller organizations with less complex needs and probably either less technical acumen, i.e. they can't run it themselves, or less big budgets, they can't afford to pay a partner to implement Moodle. We have an outstanding mission and manifesto at Moodle. It's a platform that's dedicated to empowering educators, trainers, and learners all around the world. And our goal is to create solutions that make learning accessible to everyone, regardless of their location or financial situation. We aim to help cultivate a love for learning in people, fostering this big community of lifelong learners. And that's because at Moodle, we envision a future where learning is absolutely a right, not a privilege. And everybody in this room needs to think for a second how privileged they are of the fact that you even have access to education at all. Because in reality, that is not true for many, many people on this planet. And so we believe that it should be a right and not a privilege, and where everyone in the world has the opportunity to unlock their full potential. That's why we give Moodle away for free. Fundamentally, that's the why. As Tanya said, we're pretty big, and I actually need to update my bio because we've ticked over 400 million lifelong learners who have used Moodle at some point in their life. We have 156,000 registered sites across the globe, but that is just our registered sites. That means that somebody out there has gone, hey, I'm okay with telling Moodle that I've implemented a Moodle instance in my school, or my university, or even just in my house. Lots of people don't tell us. And so we don't necessarily have an exact hard number of how many Moodle implementations there are in the world, but we do get some data because obviously any implementation that's big enough is going to ping back on a regular basis for security update, language pack updates, all sorts of things. And so we know that there's about 500,000 of those big enough implementations out there in the world. So if you do the math on the 156 to 500,000, then you apply that same math on the 400 million to whatever that number is, I can't do it in my head, we reach at least, if not more, 5% of the world population, which is pretty outstanding. And importantly, Moodle has got different kind of aspects to it. So one, it's a platform. So if you can download Moodle and play with it, you can treat it as a platform on which you can build new things, new services, new products, new inventions. It's also a product. So particularly when it's deployed through Moodle Cloud, you want it to receive it and get it, and you want the thing to work. You want it to help you learn. You want it to help you teach. You want it to help get your job done, and you want it to be easy to use and simple, and just it's probably something you don't really want to have to think about. And then also it's a service. It's a service that gets provided through the Moodle Cloud services, but also our partners. So Moodle has 3 big different ways in which it can be used, and when our product team develops it, we have to think about those different methodologies and those different ways and be able to meet the needs of all those different stakeholders. And the stakeholders are incredibly varied. So it's not just a university or a school that might use it, but corporations and governments around the world, the UNHCR, the Red Cross, most of the school system in Spain, for instance. You have this wide range of diverse users with these really different needs. And a corporate H&R rep will have a different need to a higher education professor and a different need to a grade school teacher. And somehow our team has to think about all of those different users' needs, all of those different jobs to be done, and somehow try and build something. And as I said, there's only 80 of us. 86, actually, is the number, and we're spread out all over the world. This map is the map for all of Moodle HQ. We don't have that many people in the States. I couldn't find a better one. But yeah, we have 86 different people that work in the product function, based in about 23 different countries, and who speak 26 different languages. We all work remote, and we all kind of catch up with each other once every 3 weeks at the end of our sprints online. So how does 86 people manage a product that size with the diversity of the ecosystem that we have to cater to, with all of these different needs? The kind of obvious answer would be, it's because you're an open source solution, you know? Open source, other people can contribute, blah, 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 blah. It's good, it's easy. Actually, yes, that's part of the answer. But for me, what makes Moodle actually have the ability to impact the world in which the way that we do with such the small team that we have is not just because it's open source. Our superpower is that we are a community software project. We are a project or a software solution that is built by a community of people that contributes to the evolution of Moodle because they believe in what we do. That's our superpower. That community is actually pretty substantial. So Moodle's a little old. If you've ever worked with it and you've seen the code, you'll probably agree. But we are modernizing it every day, and our principal architect, Andrew, who's sitting there, is really key to instrumenting that. But this announcement was in 2021, and you can see there that we've registered at least 871 developers from 57 different countries who contributed over 128,000 code commits to the Moodle platform, the actual core code of Moodle. And we also know that 871 developers is not quite the number, because there's the one developer that pushes the button, but there's often, we know, lots of large teams of people who work with that developer. So there's thousands of people. And so when I think about my team, I don't think about 86 people. I think about the thousands, because that's who we need to engage, align, and empower to deliver the Moodle solution. Just, to put that kind of in monetary perspective, in our last release, we release every 6 months, we estimate that about 1,250 days worth of development and QA efforts were contributed for free by our community members. That's the equivalent of paying 10 developers for half a year. If you know how much developers get paid, you know that's a lot of money. It's worth a lot, this community engagement. But it's not just like the free labor that we get out of it, it's also the diversity that we get out of it. Moodle is translated in over 140 countries, and each one of those translations, every single one of them, I think except Spanish, is done by volunteers. So we build Moodle in English, and we put it out there in the world, but then there's somebody in Chechnya who chooses to translate the whole thing for us. And they do that month in, year out, and they give us that, and it gives us the opportunity to spread the Moodle capability on a global scale in a way that we could never do in-house. The other thing that's super exciting about our community is they're super passionate about Moodle, and so we can work with them to shape the future of Moodle, to help us with our UX designs, our research, our co-designs, our prototyping. And unlike, I know, when you're building proprietary software and you're trying to go, hey, can you help me with my prototype or my design? And people are like, sure, how much are you gonna pay me? Our people don't do that. They're like, yeah, I'll give you 4 hours. I'll give you the time. I'll talk to you about how I use Moodle. They absolutely love it. And we have over 1,000 people who are registered in our Moodle Experience Lab. And whenever we want to do something, any piece of work that we start with the Experience Lab and say, hey, we want to talk to you about the problems that you face in Moodle. Can we have a chat? And it's just a fantastic advantage. But this value that the community provide doesn't stop in terms of when we're building Moodle itself. It also takes Moodle outside of the realm of what we could ever imagine it to be. This is what Moodle looks like out of the box. We're in a course right now. It's a course about mindfulness. It's funny, our demo courses are either about mindfulness or climate change. I think we're trying to tell the world something. But this is what it looks like out of the box. So, clean, you can navigate through the content, read a book, do some activities, and learn some new stuff. This is what one of our community members did with Moodle by creating a theme that you can apply in Moodle. It doesn't look at all like Moodle out of the box. He's completely transformed the course experience. And the way this course works is as you navigate, you can click the different little buttons, the little buildings, I should say, and you do a different activity. So one building might be a quiz, the other one you might want to watch a video. And as you complete the activities, the buildings grow in size, demonstrating the progress that you're making with the course. So this kind of creativity of how could we design a Moodle that will be more fun for users of a certain type? We would never be able to come up with that just in our own little team. It's the community that brings that range of creativity and diversity. It's also the community that brings the 2,000 or so plugins that you can add to a Moodle implementation. And plugins in the Moodle world means like an app on your phone. And just like the apps on an iPhone, without the apps on your iPhone, it's just a phone. Moodle's a little bit the same without its plugins, but almost none of those, there's a few that are created by us, but almost none of those extensions and plugins are created by Moodle HQ. They are all created by the community, kind of like the App Store, actually. And finally, this community of ours allows us to take Moodle in places that Moodle HQ would never imagine. You can run Moodle on a Raspberry Pi, so whoever wins the little robot in the context, try running Moodle on it. Apparently it's possible. And when you do that, this is not an idea that Moodle HQ would have ever thought of, and if we did, we probably wouldn't really prioritize it because there's just, the value return is really interesting. But This person has figured out how to put Moodle on a Raspberry Pi, and you think about that for half a second, it means that you can run a learning management platform with no internet, no cables, no infrastructure, and actually no electricity, because you can plug it into a solar panel and run it, which means that Moodle boxes get taken out in places like the mountains of Peru and the deserts of the Sahara to teach people how to do things that they need to know how to do. And we've had so many amazing examples, particularly during the pandemic, of people using Moodlebox and going to places and teaching them about COVID and protecting those people, thanks to a community member who thought, hey, why don't I try and stick this thing on a Raspberry Pi? But we don't, also we can take Moodle in places that we would never be able to either. We can take it to really large scale. So for instance, and again, this is a pandemic related story, these are two speakers at one of our global events, the one that we held last year. And the person on the right, your left, is from Germany. Him and his team were able to initiate a scalable model by which they were able to implement Moodle implementations for over 7,000 schools at the beginning of the pandemic. This solution did not exist. There were 0 schools in their platform. And within 3 months, they had more than 3,000 schools spun up, each with their own individual accounts. A little principal could send an email and say, hey, can I have a Moodle implementation for my school? Within minutes, they would have a link, a username and a password, and something that they could use to teach their students online when they couldn't come into school anymore. And they've now scaled that solution up to 7,000 schools and 1.4 million users. Or the example on your right, the Austrian federal education system runs its entire school network, not entire, 78% of its school network on one instance of Moodle Workplace, which allows them to have multi-tenant solutions within it and give every school their own identity. But it's one Moodle. The one in Germany, it's all different Moodles for the 7,000 schools. The one in Australia, it's one Moodle that they're sharing against all these schools. And they've scaled that up to over 800,000 students with no performance degradation. Again, none of that we could do without the imagination, the innovation that the community brings to the Moodle project. Now, it's not all gravy. There are some really, really weird things about building a software solution with thousands of people that you've never met across the world. One of them is that you'll probably remember I showed you what Moodle looked like. One of them is that you never know what people are going to do with it. And sometimes there's Moodles out there in the world that kind of look really, really ugly. I'm happy to say that this is, I think, German, or definitely not from Perth, so we're not mocking anybody that is in the room. But you never know what people are going to do with our software. And so we get a lot of feedback that Moodle's UX is really old, really clunky, really ugly, doesn't really quite hit it. And yes, some of that's actually true, but most of it is because people can do whatever they want with it and completely transform the product proposition that we put out there in the world. And sometimes it's not to great effect. It's not just other people that kind of, or other Moodle implementations that are a little bit twisted. Our core product is a little bit twisted too, because you've got so many different people contributing to it. It's really hard to maintain consistency. So these are just like, we've got 3 variations of a confirm button just to show you. So this one that continues in blue and on the left, the other one that continues on the right, and then another one, no cancel or continue, is just yes and no. So the consistency in the platform is really, really hard to maintain, and we're doing all sorts of things to try and address that, including we think we're going to be able to set up an official design system team that can help make sure that these things don't happen in the future. But for right now, it's a real challenge. We also can't move quite as fast, probably, as other organizations. So at the moment, we're having to upgrade from Bootstrap 4 to Bootstrap 5, which is the framework that we use for our front-end development. And the numbers that you see there, the 4.4, 4.5, 4.6, those are our release numbers. And we do major releases. We release minor releases much more frequently than that, but major releases only every 6 months. And because there are so many plugins and innovations and developments that hang around the Moodle ecosystem, we can't just upgrade something. If we do that, everything would break. And these whole networks of education sectors would just stop working. So whenever we have to do something, we've got to do it really, really, really slowly, especially big breaking changes like that, and take our time and really engage with the community, which sometimes moving that slow can be a bit of a problem, as I'm sure all of you who do this for a living can imagine. And then the other bad part about building with the community is that everybody has an opinion about everything. This is a little conversation that started in 2021 when we announced the new icon for what was then Moodle 4.0. And it just kept going. And everybody in our community thought they were better than us at designing icons. And the messages just kept going and going. And this is the last one on the thread, which was in 2023. For 2 years, people were complaining and talking about the icons. And so we have to kind of try and rope all these people in and get them on board to the story that we're trying to tell, the decisions that we're making. And that, again, takes time and quite a lot of patience, I have to say. But hey, the risk is worth the reward. Not only can we scale our outputs in ways that we could never imagine or never fund ourselves, but also the pace of our innovation by far outstrips anyone else in our industry when it's done outside of the core. We were the very first with Gen AI in an LMS platform. Not us, not Moodle HQ, the core platform. That takes us the same amount of time and sometimes a little bit longer than any other proprietary piece of software that's not a community-based project. But before most of our competitors even learned how to spell AI, and before our guys could put their heads around how we would build it in a system at scale, there were plugins out there in the world that allowed you to use Gen AI on Moodle. We were by far the first, and by a long shot. Most of the world was still trying to debate whether AI had a role to play in education, and these plugins were available. So just on the pace of innovation, that distributed model of learning and developing and building things together beats proprietary and closed every single time. Now, okay, that's all very interesting, Marie. Thanks, but what does this have to do with me? Well, the reality is every single one of you in this room is part of a community. Whether it's your work community, your personal community, your career community, what you do is shaped and influenced by the people that are around you. And the methods that Moodle applies to software development are methods that are worth thinking about applying for yourselves in your own life. What can you do to better leverage the capability and the support and the ability and the help of the community around you? Well, I've got 3 little things that I'd like to share with you that we've learned at Moodle doing this for the last 20 years. The first one is it's really critical, no matter what you're really doing, to make people feel like they're part of something. This is a photo of our global event, the one we held last year in Barcelona, and this photo is a photo of all of the people who attended, most of which are community, not only community members, but were also presenters at the event. So unlike most vendor-led events, it was not a Moodle show. We had 3 whole days of talk, and there was a few Moodle speakers. I unfortunately was one of them, but most of the people who presented were members of our community demonstrating what they were doing with Moodle. So let's put that in your context. You're working with somebody on something. They contribute to your work, and that work then needs to be presented to your boss, let's just say. How about taking that person with you in the meeting? Because that is what you do when you're fostering a sense of community. You don't necessarily close that door and take the work and move it on. You bring people into the journey and make them feel like they're part of something and that they've contributed to something meaningful. The other big tip is to never stop communicating. Our team does these, what is really typical in a lot of software development team, which is these 3-week sprints, showcases, where at the end of our 3-week sprint, we do a showcase and we demonstrate to each other the work that we've accomplished over the last 3 weeks. The big difference with us is that we record these showcases and create little snippets and then share it with the entire planet. So our devs are super brave because they demo things that they're not quite sure is gonna work in front of like probably tens of thousands of people. I kind of hope they've never counted the number because I bet you some of them would never want to present anymore. But it is really, you know, so we showcase, we're super open. We give everybody information on a regular basis as to what we're creating, what we're doing, how it's going. And that communication creates a sense of awareness and belonging with the people who receive it. So if you take that lesson and you apply it to your work, how much time do you take investing in catching up with people, telling them the stories about what you're working on, and helping them understand why what you do matters and how they can contribute to it? And if there's nothing in your calendar that's ever about connecting with anybody else, there's probably something in that you want to look at and check in. And then the final little tip is to get comfortable with losing control. Now, this is not new news. We all know that control is an illusion, but knowing that and acting on it are two different things. And quite frankly, most of us spend a lot of our times putting internal limits on ourselves because walking out of those limits means that we will be out of control from wherever that we are. But the moment you get comfortable for not being in control anymore is the moment that the world of opportunity really, really opens up. When other people and outcomes that you can't expect start happening to you. Imagine if all of those outcomes were amazing. Imagine if all of those outcomes took you to a place where you are not today and can scale your personal impact beyond your imagination. Let go of control. See where it takes you. And so on that last little thought, I would like to take a second to get you guys to think about the impact of this community, the latency community, and probably also take a minute to say thank you to the Mechanical Rock team, the sponsors, and all of the event organizers for giving us a moment to be part of a community. How are you going to leverage this community moving forward? How are you going to advocate for it? How are you going to make the most out of the connections that you made here today, about the things that you learned here today? And how are you going to tell other people, hey, you need to come to Latency next year because it was amazing? That's what community is. This is what community is. And the more we make out of it, the better off we will all be. And so that was it. Hope that was useful. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you very, very much, Marie. I would love to spare you some questions, but I'm not going to do that because I know there's going to be. We have got some time, so I do want to get some. So do we have some questions from the audience for Marie? I will run the microphone over. Any hands? Thank you for that. From this amazing latency community, all the different badges that we have here, from different organizations, all trying to do the same thing, which is drag WA out of the dark ages.
Thanks, Marie. Truly inspirational. So 2 questions. One, how do you keep up with your sustainability and financial model for your organization? And how do you control unauthorized access? It's a lot of people accessing the model. How do you keep up with what they're doing to the model?
We don't. We kind of get comfortable with losing control, right? Once it's downloaded and in their hands, we have to say, and that's part of the hard part. So we don't control that part. In terms of sustainability and financial growth, it's actually a really, really hard thing that we have to face into. And I think over the last 20 years, Moodle has had real ups and downs in terms of how much it could invest itself in maintaining and managing the platform. We have gotten to a really good place. Our Moodle Cloud offering, thanks to the pandemic and the really hard work of people like, and I just saw Lee's here too, but Lee and Mathieu over there, allowed us to scale, and we make a good amount of money out of that, which is quite useful. And then this partner model, which that distribution of the workplace product proposition, which is unique to the partner model, launching Workplace has helped us doing the sustainability part, because, you know, it's true. With the cold, hard reality is you can't do it without money. And so we have to find those paths. But at Moodle, our general philosophy is we don't sell software. We sell the services that are associated with the software that we provide. Yeah.
Awesome, thank you. I think I saw another hand. Thank you. Well, I'll take yours.
Can you give one way that being from Western Australia has been a help and one way that has been a hindrance?
That for Moodle?
Yeah.
Ooh, that's a really hard question because I don't know. You know what? No, I do know part of the answer. I don't think Moodle would have been invented if Martin, who's our founder, wasn't growing up in rural WA and had to do all of his studies over like some really dodgy connection phone thing. And he literally had no one to talk to, had to do all of his schooling in this really awkward situation. And when he ended up moving to Perth for university and going to Curtin, he was like, I need to find a better way for distance education. And that kind of made him go, all right, because he was doing comp sci and he figured it out. So there's something about that constraint, that, you know, the power of constraints that I think is probably, you know, yeah, Moodle wouldn't exist without it. Maybe somebody else would have invented it, but maybe later and maybe not quite as cool. Yeah.
Only the best for WA, that totally makes sense. I've got time for one more. I'm going to go to the back, and then we are going to give you all a little activity. So.
Hi, really inspiring talk. So it's a little bit of a personal question. How have Moodle shaped you or as a person? How have you changed before Moodle and after coming into this and seeing the impact it have in the world?
Yeah, well, that's a great question. Thank you for asking it. I'm a lot happier, like straight up. I sleep better, I wake up in the morning, I'm quite happy to spend 8 hours working on something. I worked for a bank before, so it's not hard. But like genuinely happier. I feel more at peace with what I spend my time doing in my life. And I really can't oversell the value of that. Like, it's outstanding. And I think until you live it, it's really hard to get. But I recommend it. It's pretty awesome.